I've seen a lot of people ask over the last couple months, really ever since the season ended and the Bulls missed the playoffs, what is the timeline for Billy Donovan? How much longer would this team need to underperform before the front office puts him on the hot seat of keeping his job? And the answer is pretty simple. It's a long timeline before the Bulls start considering looking for alternatives as a head coach. But it's a bit more nuanced than that, and I'll explain why in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, as I'm sure you all know, Billy Donovan was hired by the Bulls in the offseason of 2020 after the bubble and after Donovan stepped down as the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Newly hired Arturas Karnisovas jumped at the chance of hiring an experienced veteran coach who was just made available on the coaching market over most of the candidates available at that time, who were set to become first-time head coaches like Ime Udoka, Jamal Mosley, Darvin Ham, guys who would eventually secure head coaching positions at a later time. And while I think we can all agree that Billy Donovan was certainly an upgrade from Jim Boylen, at the same time though, at least for me anyway, I personally didn't view Billy Donovan as this next-level head coach that would get the Bulls to a title, which was fine at that time, because when they did hire him, the Bulls were still rebuilding. They had a bunch of young players that needed proper development that they weren't getting from Jim Boylen and his coaching staff, and if there was one thing Donovan was good at, it was developing young players and being able to build relationships with those players because of the history and success that he had at the collegiate level. But of course, the Bulls' whole timeline of the rebuild shifted after they made that trade for Vucevic at the trade deadline that season. They brought in Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso in the offseason. All great signings, by the way, in a vacuum, but it was clear that this team was taking a new direction of wanting to win now over rebuilding for the future, which I was all for. I was tired of seeing this team lose season after season, all but to secure the number 7 pick in the draft and not landing a franchise-altering level player. I wanted to see this team get back to relevancy and start competing again. But the problem with that, though, the approach the front office decided to take, was that it wasn't conducive to what Billy Donovan is best at. You see, Billy Donovan is a player's coach. That's been the case for a while now. Now, it's great when it comes to young players and prioritizing their development, but when the direction is let's get some established star-level players, they start pushing to win now, Donovan has often fallen victim to letting the stars do what they want to do and not holding them accountable as much when they're impacting the game negatively. You saw this with Kevin Durant in his final year with OKC, which was an impressive first season in the NBA for Donovan, by the way, but relying way too much on his stars and blowing a 3-1 lead to the Warriors in the conference finals. KD leaves, then Billy Donovan essentially lets Russell Westbrook do whatever he wanted in controlling the game. Those were the years where Westbrook started averaging triple-doubles, would eventually win an MVP award. And then with the Bulls, you've seen the same sort of thing as well, letting DeMar and Zach often do too much, playing heavy ISO-style ball, creating shots for themselves, not getting other guys involved, the development of their younger players going by the wayside, and continuing to let his star players do what they want to do, even when it's sometimes to the detriment of the team. And I know this is going to come off like a huge Billy Donovan bashing video. It's not meant to be that way, because I actually think Billy Donovan gets more unfair criticism than he often deserves for the Bulls' failures. But in late game situations, and scratch that, not even in late game situations, there will be times where Donovan's lack of creativity on the court and making the proper rotations, play calls, adjustments, whatever you want to call it, but the lack of thinking outside the box in pressure situations where he just relies too much on his stars to let them just take over, and it doesn't work out a lot of the time, and you run into situations where DeMar is slowing down the overall pace of the offense, creating little to no ball movement, or Zach taking bad shots, forcing shots at ill-advised times, and it results in the Bulls being one of the worst clutch teams in the NBA last year. I mean, you guys probably remember in a lot of my post-game video rants after a bad loss by the Bulls, how is it that Billy Donovan doesn't get in the ears of guys like DeMar and Zach and tell them to get other players involved, switch it up and do something different. If ISO plays aren't working, do something else, or you're getting benched. Like, I'm sure a lot of you played basketball at the high school level, which obviously is nothing like what it is at the NBA, but no matter how good you were, even if you were the best player on your high school team, if you kept screwing up, missing shot after shot, not playing team basketball, giving momentum to the other team, whether turning the ball over or a quick one-and-done shot that went the other way, you better believe it, you were going to hear it from the head coach, getting in your face in the next time out. Billy Donovan is never going to do that with his star players. He's just not. He's not that kind of coach. I mean, the one time he did, when he benched Zach Lavine in the fourth quarter because he was like 2 for 14 against the Magic and was shooting the Bulls out of the game with a box plus minus of minus 22 or whatever it was, Zach got pissed, and he let the media know about it. He let Billy Donovan know about it, and Donovan never did that again. So anyway, the point in me saying all this is Billy Donovan, not saying he's a bad coach, he's a decent coach, but this isn't the roster you want someone like Billy Donovan coaching. Now, going back to this question though of, well, if that's the case and the Bulls are not being really that great of a team, finishing the season below 500, missing the playoffs, then why haven't the Bulls fired him, or is this upcoming season maybe his last? Well, the problem is, if there was one thing we know about this new front office, they doubled down on even their poorest decisions. Vucevic trade, they still keep saying that worked out for them. They still felt last season the team played well, and it's why they didn't make any moves at the deadline and minimal moves the prior offseason in signing Drummond and Dragic. And in addition to that, they have continued to back and express their support for Billy Donovan, and even saying in their press conferences that he's done an excellent job. So that's one piece. The front office has a hard time admitting when they make a mistake and being gung-ho about going after Billy Donovan after he left OKC. But the other piece is the financial component. If you remember, the Bulls offered Billy Donovan that secret contract extension last offseason, and it came out around the beginning of the year after the Bulls started struggling, which pissed a lot of fans off. But an early secret contract extension when Billy Donovan still had 2 years left on his deal, which means Billy Donovan going into this season will be on the final year of that initial contract they gave him at the time of his hire. And the new contract won't be going into effect until next season, which for the record, I don't believe it's ever been specified how long of a contract extension that was for. If you know any of that and I'm just missing, let me know in the comments. But the fact of the matter is Billy Donovan still has a lot of years left under contract with the Chicago Bulls. And after the Bulls had to pay Tom Thibodeau, Fred Hoiberg, and even Jim Boylan, they had to pay all these coaches after they fired them early before their contracts ended. And given what we know about this ownership and hating to just waste money, there is not a chance in hell that the Bulls would fire Billy Donovan at some point this season or in the offseason when he still has a whole new contract that will begin in the 24-25 season. Now, if the Bulls are really bad, and I mean really bad, like there are no major injuries for the most part, they're fairly healthy and they're actually trying, and let's say they make a bunch of changes at the trade deadline because the team has been so bad, and even after that they're still bad and they finish with like 25 wins or even 30 wins, essentially one of the bottom feeders in the league, and they miss the play-in entirely, then maybe they would consider just cutting their losses and letting Donovan go, because at that point it's clear he's just not the man for the job and probably shouldn't be coaching at this level. But the Bulls aren't going to be that bad. If anything, the Bulls marginally improve their roster with the additions of Javon Carter and Torrey Craig to add some shooting. They're bringing all the guys back for the most part. There's just no way this team falls off and finishes 13th or 14th in the East. They're likely going to be around 500, probably slightly above, and depending on if everything goes right, they could even see themselves as high as the 5th or 6th seed to avoid the play-in. And with the Bulls showing a little improvement, probably making the playoffs, they're going to be good enough where it won't justify firing Billy Donovan where he still has so many years left on his deal. It's just not going to happen. So I hate to be that guy for all of the Bulls fans who are hoping that this is going to be Billy Donovan's last season, but he's going to be around for some time unless the Bulls majorly bomb this year and everything is a disaster, which I guess we shouldn't entirely rule out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. How long do you think it'll be before Donovan is on the hot seat? Let me know. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.